Hello, Rob wanted me to read a story from his book for a podcast, Dungeons and Day Jobs. His book's called Dungeons and Day Jobs. And I guess if you want to, you can find it on Google. I'll give a link to his website, evilbobdayjob.tripod.com. And I'm going to have trouble reading the story because some of the characters speak with disjointed accents. And my poor husband, I didn't read his book yet. Guess that's horrible, seeing as he watches most of my YouTube videos. So this story is called Trailer the Temptress. And I'm just doing this for Rob because our microphone's broken, and this is the way he can extract audio from the video. So Trailer the Temptress. When I read the flyer for Meals on Wheels, I never thought I'd be hauling a frozen goat out of my trunk and down a hole in the ground. Plus I expected to be in kinda run-down neighborhoods, since I figured it was poor folks mostly. Ted's place was sandwiched in between two brick houses in a fancy old suburb. You'd walk up to this wide flowering shrub that kind of shot limbs out in all directions and hung back to the ground, and right in front of the shrub was a rusted mailbox that said Ted Scarburton. I'd have to lug this cold goat under one arm and hold back branches from the shrub till I can find the hole. Then I'd get on my hands and knees and drop my legs down the hole while twigs and little buds and flowers got tangled in my hair. I'd come out of the tunnel to his big cavern and yell, "Anybody home?" The place reminded me of the bargain basement of a flea market, because it was a huge open room, maybe 50 feet across the big circular hollow, and it was always kinda cold and musty. And because there were thousands of trinkets on shelves all over the walls. These mismatched shelves made out of fiberboard and old gray plywood and corrugated tin poking out of the dirt walls from every direction. The shelves were covered with German cuckoo clocks and kissing Dutch tots and glass kittens cleaning themselves and ceramic figurines of anorexic fairies holding flowers and golden angels blowing trumpets and purple plastic Happy Meal gorillas and 3 issues of Popular Mechanics and a broken remote control for a TV set that's been gone 15 years and more ceramic figurines and glass hearts and fake orange flowers and wooden clothespins. He would always stretch up right beside me from somewhere I hadn't noticed, spooking the shit out of me. But that's because his skin was all sandy brown and scaly to hide in the earth. He went through that thing when I first started bringing him meals, where he wanted to feel my hair and he let me check out his skin. He ate and lived among white folks all his life, so I was one of the first blacks he had ever seen in person. I tried to brush it off when he first asked to feel my hair. I said, "Don't you get white people asking weird things about you, treating you different, like asking to touch your skin and see your claws?" But I was curious about him too, since he was the first troll I had ever met. No, most times when humans treat me different over the years I eat. Them I eat. But you know, doctors says no more. Most of them give you worms. They all bad livers from drinking, you know, lungs full of tar. He would cross his long arms, lick his chin and smile. I used to enjoy, now no more, goats. We talked about it for a while, but after the discussions of race and class, I still wanted to touch his skin, so we exchanged our curious, racially ignorant groping for a minute. His arms looked like packed dirt with gravel and pebbles, but it was really like a hard lizard skin or frog skin. Once in a while, when I stopped in, I'd catch him before he straightened up the lair and see his empty molted skin lying on the rug. He'd always grab it up quick and kick the little strips and flakes of skin into the corner. When he pressed a lock of my hair between his abrasive fingers that time, he hummed and studied my hair and skin and eyes with no shame for staring. "Good hair, looks very pretty tied as you have done so. Why they make a big deal of how you blacks so different? You skin no more tough or durable than pale skin. Clear to me that you just clam up camouflage for different setting than those Norwegian and Asian peoples. Bah! No matter, very pretty hair and hips you have. Strong girl if you carry goats for me." He kept staring at my hair and smiling and scanning down the buttons of my shirt to my legs and up again. I almost said something, but he patted me gently on the shoulder and said, "Grow you some babies soon, before you too old to enjoy them. Frowning people make the world crowded, but never too many smiles like on you." Ted was always real nice. He showed me his shelves full of angels proudly, reminding me of where he had gotten the pieces, as if he hadn't told me the weeks before. I guess he was really getting on in years, several centuries. He couldn't get around very quickly, and apparently didn't have the money to buy food or the strength to hunt anymore. "And this kitty," Ted would say, "my heart's pride, really." It was a white ceramic cat with blue ear tips and paws and a face that looked too human. Before Jimmy's Hendrick took this from a girlfriend, it was actually owned by the sister of President Eisenhower. His cavern slowly got smaller over the 2 years I delivered meals to him. He's gradually filling it, so he could finally bury himself when he grew too weak to go on. He might still be there, though. I guess another year or two before that den will be full. When I'd finally pull myself away from Ted, I'd drive over to the state park. It was a mile of tall pines and their orange needles falling along the roadside. I'd pull to the side of the roadway to Gar Lake and grab a cupcake and a stack of newspapers off the back seat. There was a jogging hiking trail across the road where I'd make my way back to the pines and the needle-covered forest floor. As the ground turned boggy and the pines gave way to leafy trees and bushes and cattails coming out of the mud, a sign stood 2 feet off the ground to identify the patch of yawning green trumpet weeds growing nearby. At the marker sign, I would turn off the path and walk towards the edge of the swamp water. Within a few feet of the water, depending how much it had rained in recent weeks, was the dead husk of a tree trunk, broken off a foot or two over my head, hollow from top to bottom. In a small crevice at the base of the dead tree was Kenny's crystal. Every time I walked up, Kenny would say, "It's so good to see you. God, I hope you can stay a while today." I'm pretty sure he started crying on more than one occasion, but it was hard to see his shrunken form inside the crystal. And I did stay for long hours the first few times I visited, out of pity. He couldn't go anywhere, and no one else came to see him. I was the only one who would bring him cupcakes and newspapers. His life force and all his powers had been confined within the crystal, but he had a little residual magic that he could use to turn the pages of newspapers lying on the ground near his crystal. And he could slowly absorb cupcakes, some kind of magical telepathic ingestion. I don't know how it worked. Anyways, he couldn't eat or drink anything while he was trapped in the crystal, and he would likely be there for thousands of years before they would let him out. So tasting a real cupcake now and then was a special treat for him. He would start flipping through the magazines and newspapers as soon as I brought them, asking me if I knew more about the wars in North Asia or the unicorn scandal that threatened to topple the Canadian Prime Minister. Man, I knew from the first time I saw that guy Cretan. There was something hidden behind that glamorous facade. Didn't you see it? I mean the way he was always so nervous. He couldn't help slurring his speech. I just thought it was 'cause he was from Quebec. Kenny would scold me for not keeping abreast of politics, as if it was important for someone trapped in a crystal for 20 lifetimes to know the political climate in Canada. I never paid attention to that crap, but I tried to tell him what little I heard on the TV news about the current events. Kenny would lean forward on his seat to hear every tidbit, like I was a queen announcing a royal decree. Yes, on his little seat, he had conjured tiny armchairs and bookshelves within the crystal, and his walls were hung with paintings by Mondrian and Warhol. I'm not sure where he slept. Either the couch was a well-concealed futon, or maybe he conjured his bed every night and sent it away every morning. When I break free and the old gods reclaim their domination over this world, Kenny would tell me, I'm going to do something special for you. I really mean it. Maybe a new car. They'll let me do that, you know. I'll have that much power if I help them return. And he would go off on his usual gripe about how life would have been great if only he had succeeded in calling the old gods before getting locked up. Usually that would cure my pity for him when he showed how much self-pity he still had, and I would look at my watch or my bare wrist or otherwise make an excuse to leave. Kenny would rise from his chair as if he were ceding me to the door and thank me for coming. Sometimes he would be angry that I wasn't staying, and he would turn his chair away from the crack in the tree trunk, picking up a tiny book from his microscopic coffee table, like he had been enjoying his stay in the tree trunk, and my visit was a minor distraction. He'd say, please see if you can find some back issues of The Economist next time. Other days he would beg me to stay with him a few minutes longer. Once he jumped out of his chair and threw his arms out, screaming and waving his hands back and forth and around in circles in front of him, and a green bud poked out of the dirt in front of the dead tree and blossomed into a daisy. Then he fell to the floor, the bottom facet of the crystal, panting. One day, soon, something special, just for you. New car, maybe. I took the daisy that time, said goodbye, and made my way back through the bushes to the trail. When I got back to the car, the daisy was wilted. As I opened the door and sat in front of the steering wheel, my hands were empty. My last stop was not as emotionally taxing as the others. I often looked forward to it after long visits with Ted or Kenny. It was a beautiful drive through the rest of the park, passing by Gar Lake and into the countryside. Just farms and silos and old scattered farmhouses for a few miles. Then the road grew small shops and businesses like moss along a stretch here and there, until the moss became a series of fungal strip malls. After a row of warehouses, newly built condominiums, and torn-up mud lawns, and a strip of video joints and empty storefronts, I would turn off the main road to Sunshine Court,